right, so now that we've talked about the pre-reading and the different types of questions that you'll see, let's actually talk about the post-reading process, which is the process of elimination. Now, there are 3 reasons that you will actually eliminate an answer choice. Number 1, if it's not mentioned. Now, even if a question says, oh, what does this imply or suggest? What can you infer? Those are all misdirects, because this test is a very, very literal test, meaning even for the questions that are not line reference or those that are not buy one, get one free, you should still be able to underline the actual areas, whether that's multiple lines or whether that's different parts, so forth. But you should be able to underline everything in the passage. That's how literal this is, that it's practically a large matching game. And I want to emphasize this because particularly students that are in AP classes don't tend to do well on the SAT passages simply because you're looking for a level of complication, the symbolism, the meaning behind it that does not exist in this particular question set. So you're looking for a depth that's not there. So basically tone it down to sort of a 9th grade reading level where you're simply just playing a large matching game. So if it's not mentioned, if you cannot justify it, it's automatically out. Then a subcategory of that, and the second reason to eliminate an answer choice, is if it's partially true and partially not. So we have a tendency, particularly because this is a timed exam, we're kind of in a rush, that if we see part of an answer, we're like, oh, you know, that's totally correct. I definitely remember reading about it. And then you see the second part and you're like, oh, you know, I don't remember that part, but maybe I overlooked it. Maybe I was just in a hurry and because I was rushing, I just overlooked it. Or I just didn't even fully understand the passage anyway, so it could have been in there and I just didn't catch it. Whatever your justification is for saying that, yeah, I know the first part or the second part, but you know, that other part, I could have been there. Don't do that, because going back to that first point I made, every single part of that answer choice should be underlinable in the actual text. It should be mentioned, even if it's in sort of obviously a summary form or reworded or something. The answers are going to be reworded versions of what's already in the passage. So you should be able to locate it. And the final reason to eliminate, if the answer choice is extreme. So examples, always, never, everyone, no one, too many. Sort of these very extreme, I guess, polarizing types of words, that's going to be wrong. In fact, the test actually very much sticks to all of these mellow answers, like, you know, a few, or may have done, and so forth. Now, in terms of emotions, so that was extreme words, but now let's talk about extreme emotions. Those will not exist outside of maybe even if the literary passage. So in the literary passage, which as a reminder is the very first passage that you read, and because it's a story, the characters may have strong reactions. So they may have these extreme reactions of devastation or excitement or what have you. But first of all, even that is very rare. And second, that's limited only to the first passage. After that, so the next 4 passages are much more serious. So in that case, if the question says, well, how does the narrator or how does the researcher or so on feel? Well, it's never going to be ecstatic or excited or devastated. It's always going to be something mellow. Something like, well, they were looking forward to conducting this experiment, or they were curious to explore something. Or if it's a bad thing, then it was, well, they may disagree, etc. Particularly for those passage 1, passage 2 type questions where the 2 authors are essentially talking about opposing ideas or some similarity with some opposition and so forth. And then the questions ask you, well, how would the author of passage 1 feel about this statement from passage 2? Once again, no one's flat out going to say, I hate it. I hate his ideas, etc. They're not going to say completely hates his idea or loves his idea. It's going to be may slightly, somewhat disagree, or may somewhat agree, or may agree, right? But it's going to be very mellowed out. So that's something to watch out for. So once again, as a recap, there are 3 reasons to eliminate an answer choice. The first one, if it's not mentioned, because every question has an underlinable, basically, portion to it in the passage. Even there is no such thing as making your own assumption or drawing your own real conclusions, simply a matching game. That again takes us to the second reason to eliminate, which is partial. So if it's half right, half wrong, or you can only justify half of it, then just leave it alone and look for a better answer. And if it looks like the others are just definitely wrong, then you come back to it. But other than that, once again, you should be able to underline where you found it in the passage. All right, and then finally the extremes. So too many, never, always, etc. Those types of words are just, if you see them in the answer choice, it's an automatic out. So cross it out. And let's make sure, yes, that covers all three of the major reasons. And in the next video, I'm actually going to run through an entire passage and show you my basically thinking process, and I'll do it out loud so you see exactly how my mind is working when I navigate the passage. So then, until then, make sure you do your homework, and I will talk to you tomorrow.